Happy New Year. Reminder that we record our sessions, that we post them on Facebook, on YouTube, on the SGNY page. We are back to In the Greater World. I'm going to share here where we are. We are on chapter 17. So for those that were here last month, you may remember that we went with Andre Luiz to visit an institution for the mentally challenged, for the mentally imbalanced, and a better word, and his experiences and what he saw there. It's going to be important because we are going to mention some of the experiences that he had on this last chapter, on this chapter today, when they go to the caverns or the deep lower zones. So I'm going to ask Zoraida to read it, and then we can comment. Okay?
Okay. On the doorsteps of the caverns, Calderado and I were now with the aid unit that would be working in the caverns of suffering. Sister Simbriana, who headed the activities of this nature, surprised me with a question. The group was comprised of a small number of co-workers, 7 in all. When she saw me with the assistants, Siberiana asked kindly after greeting us, "Is our brother Andre planning on coming with us?" My selfish friend answered that instructor Eusebio himself has suggested that it would be appropriate for me to visit the purgatorial abysses. He explained that I was interested in getting information about life in the lower zones so that I could relate it to incarnate friends, thereby aiding them with the preparation they needed for the science of living rightly. The director listened benevolently, but objected. Yes, Eusebio's suggestion is reasonable regarding preliminary observations in the lower Umbria. Even so, as the person responsible for the expedition's direct work, I cannot give him access to all the particularities for now. She looked at me with her lucid and gentle eyes, as if she was sorry, and added, "Our esteemed Andre hasn't taken the course on assisting sufferers in the thick darkness." She touched me lightly with her caring hand and added, "Just as it is crucial to garner difficult preparatory accomplishments in order to reap the benefits of the great light, it is indispensable to be taught how to administer this same benefit in the great darkness." Seeing that I was obviously disappointed, the venerable benefactress continued, "We should remember that our brother is with us because he has substantial problems to resolve. Each situation to which we are led harbors a hidden lesson for our benefit. The higher designs never confront us with issues that are unnecessary in the arena of the circumstances. If Eusebio felt compelled to recommend this opportunity, it is because Andre Luiz has urgent services to render in such an environment. Considering my own responsibilities, however, I cannot authorize him to accompany us everywhere we go. So I would ask Brother Calderaro to remain with our esteemed student on the doorstep of the caverns without descending into them with us. Even there, studious as he is, he will find an inexhaustible supply of observational material without having to face upsetting situations for which he has not been prepared appropriately. In view of this solution, all 3 of us felt better. I thanked her, contented. Cadirado was also grateful. And so, as workers overjoyed with the opportunity of continued learning for the good, we headed for a terrifyingly dark region.
Okay. So what's happening here? They are going to visit we know that the spiritual world, we find ourselves surrounded by those that vibrate at the same level that we vibrate, surrounded by companions in thought and vibrational level. We know that the more evolved spirits can go and are always going to help and assist those in the lower zones, as they call here the lower umbral. But some of these places are, of course, worse or more difficult or more challenging than others. And what we see here, which I find very interesting, is that we think that everything works in harmony in the spiritual world, in the more evolved world. All the mentors work together, and yes, they do, but it doesn't mean that they agree in everything. So when Andre Luiz and Calderaro go into this excursion to the caverns, as they call here, to the lower zones, it's a group of 7 people, and the responsible for the activities is Sister Cipriana. And when she sees Andre Luiz, she immediately asks, is Andre planning to come in with us? And of course, she knows Andre Luiz, and she's more evolved than Andre. She can clearly see through him and understand his level of evolution. And she sees that for the type of work that she's going to do there, Andre is not prepared. Why is Andre not prepared? Again, when we discuss our remembrance of previous existences, we many times say that we remember the situations we are ready to deal with and that we are prepared to face. We are not going to remember situations that it's not going to bring us any useful information. On the contrary, is going to make us maybe paralyzed, or may make us suffer more. Here, she clearly sees that Andre Luiz is not prepared to face the situations that they are going to face in the lower zones. That instead of helping and instructing him on the difficulties of what they're going to face, it's probably going to do him more harm than good. And Eusebio, who's the mentor that we saw in the beginning of the book, that had, and actually a couple of months ago, we studied a whole chapter that was a lecture from Eusebio. He knows of the general work, but he doesn't know the details. She knows the details, and she knows that Andre Luiz is not ready. He doesn't. So she's the head of this work, and she decides according to who's prepared or not prepared to deal with it. But she doesn't leave him behind alone. She asks Calderaro. She never mentions Calderaro that he couldn't go for. So for sure he could have accompanied them. But she mentions that he should stay behind with Andre Luiz, because Andre Luiz, of course, is not even prepared to stay alone in that region. And we'll see in this chapter by the challenges and the difficult situations that they face, and how Andre Luiz is clearly not prepared to deal with those situations by himself, why Calderaro was important that Calderaro stayed behind with him. So it's important here in this introduction to understand what she talks about, the reasons that she thinks he's not prepared. She says that helping those that are, as she says here, in the great darkness, requires a special preparation and a special level of evolution, which Andre Luiz has not reached yet. So what would happen if they had taken Andre Luiz deeper down to the caverns is that he, instead of him being of assistance to the group, he would end up being a impediment. He will create troubles because of his energies. He wouldn't be able to control his vibrations because of what he would have faced. You know, he would be, as we have seen Andre Luiz do in the past, with his thoughts, his impulses, he was clearly not prepared. So she clearly makes a decision, and you know, the characteristics of a leader is to know how to lead. And the characteristics of a leader in the spiritual world is to know which workers are prepared to be of assistance and which workers are prepared to learn and which workers are not prepared to learn or be of assistance, which specifically here is Andre Luiz. But you see that there is a lot of good things that, well, good learning that he will have in this chapter, despite the impossibility of go deeper in the lower zones. And you know, if as Andre Luiz evolves, we will see in a later book, Liberation, that he goes deeper into the lower zones and to the rescue of Gregory, which is a wonderful story that it's in the book that we're going to do a couple of books ahead of us now. So, you know, as Andre evolves, he's going to be facing more difficult challenges and more prepared to face the difficult situations. But at this stage of his evolution, he's not ready yet. Yes. Okay. Questions, comments?
You know, John, I understand Andre is, I'm looking at Andre as a very evolved person, and it's surprising that even at his stage of learning, he still is not ready. So that kind of frightens me.
Well, you know, you have to. We think of Andre Luiz as, because he dictated all the books and we have all this information from him. We think of him as a more evolved spirit, and he is, but not a much more evolved spirit. We see all the struggles in Nosso Lar that he faced, right? Going through the lower zones and all the learning in the beginning of Nosso Lar. What he is an eager learner. Yes. And he's making an effort to learn, and he's making an effort of being of assistance and evolving. But we are in the fourth book of his life in the spiritual world, right? And actually 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth book. Sorry, we are in the fifth book, and he's still learning, and he's still not in any sense a mentor. He's not guiding anyone here. He's being guided. He's learning. So we shouldn't think that we are way far behind where he was here. Again, this is a good 80 years ago. I don't know now, but 80 years ago, where he was in the spiritual world was, you know, a little more evolved than us because of the work he had done from the beginning of his journey back in the spiritual world. But we shouldn't think of him as an Emmanuel, let's say, which is a much more evolved spirit. We should think of him as one of us with a good disposition, a commitment to learn and to evolve, a deep commitment to learn and to evolve, which sometimes we don't have. And he has. He acquired that in the beginning especially in the book Nosso Lar, and you know, that's what we see him here.
Okay, thank you, John.
Anyone else? Okay, so let's go on.
I had already seen deep abysses where guilty spirits accused one another in deplorable behavior. I had seen jets of flame coming down from the sky upon the valleys of rebelliousness. I had witnessed countless spirits under the influence of strange hallucinations in chambers of rectification. Here, however, were we perchance coming to the dark forest referred to by Dante Alighieri in his immortal poem? The scattered, lamenting voices rising toward the foggy sky tore at my soul. No, they were not only lamentations. As we descended, the outbursts changed. We also heard bursts of laughter and profanity. We stopped on an enormous martial plain where numerous groups of discarnate spirits extended beyond view in astonishing disorder, like thousands of deranged individuals, either separated from one another or in swarms, depending on their specific type of imbalance. I could not possibly calculate the extent of the enormous marsh, and even if I had topographically charts, the fog was too dense for distances to be computed. We traveled a few miles horizontally, and when the terrain began sloping downward again to reveal other abyssal sights, Sister Cipriana and her colleagues cheerfully said goodbye, telling the assistant and me that they would come to get us in about 6 hours. Embracing me, the director said kindly, "My friend, I wish you happy success in your studies. I'm sure that when we return, you will convey your confronting, conforming impressions." I smiled, delighted at such generous demonstration of esteem.
Okay, stop here.
Esteem, okay, yeah.
So what we have here, we see they haven't even, Cipriana hasn't gone to the deeper part of it. They were just entering the place, and they went until the doors, as she said. And you see in this description that Andre Luiz gives here, that he's already impressed. He's already affected by what he's seeing around us. So he starts by saying that what he's seeing there is he has seen spirits with hallucinations. He has visited the chambers of rectification. We saw that in previous books, and on the book that we previously read, the Workers of Life Eternal, he went with some excursions to help and assist spirits in the lower zones. But this he had never seen before. And he mentions here, which is very interesting, the dark forest referred by Dante Alighieri. In the book Dante's Inferno, or Hell, in the beginning of the book, Dante Alighieri describes him as finding himself in this place because he's not ready to go to a more evolved place. He finds himself in a dream as a 35-year-old. So in the midway in the journey of his life, remember, this is 1500s or 14th century, actually. Mm. And he finds himself lost in a dark wood. That's how the selva oscura in Italian, which is a dark forest or dark wood. And he finds himself in a very strange place on his way blocked by 3 beasts, and what they think it symbolizes is the 3 kinds of sin that brings the unrepentant soul into the one of the 3 major divisions of hell. So we see here that Dante Alighieri made a very good description, and we know that we discussed that before, that his works of heaven, hell, and purgatory, descriptions of hell are very vivid and a very beautiful book. I remember Julio saying, when you read about heaven, it's boring because he describes what he imagines, but he has never been there. So it's difficult to describe something that you don't know, you've never been there, right? But hell, we all been there, and we all know, we all have some recollections and we can describe. So that's what Andre Luiz is referring here to the dark forest. And then he starts to describe the noise, the voices, but not only lamentations. Remember, he's used to lower zones where he sees spirits complaining about their suffering, not prepared to be helped, many of them, because we do a lot of complaint without really addressing the issues that we have to address, the deeper issues. We complain and blame others. That's a very easy way out that we deal with our problems. But here, what he finds is not only complaints, not only lamentations, laughter, profanity. So he sees group of spirits, again, thousands of spirits, as he describes here, deranged individuals, either separated from one another or in swarms. What does he mean by that? Remember that if we can find ourselves in the spiritual world when we are in a place like this, in those deep lower zones, either immersed in our own mono ideas, our own thoughts, so isolated from others because we are living in our own mind. For those that watch that cute movie Soul, you see a very nice example there of those absorbed in their mono ideas, the small spirits there. But also others that work in gangs, right? And swarms here are in gangs, that they are connected by the same mental vibrations and the same desires to cause harm, to persecute. The type of groups that, those that work in mediumistic meetings deal from time to time when we receive parts of these spirits that are in this group, either the leaders or members of these groups, and they say, I work together, I have a group, and we are going to attack you with this group, and so on and so forth. So these individuals, spirits, suffering spirits, because in the end they are all suffering spirits, they are united by the, as he says here, the specific type of imbalance. It's very important for us to understand the associations that the spirits make in the spiritual world. They make associations according to their mental vibrations, their desires and their inclinations, or they find themselves alone, not alone because they don't belong to any group, but because they are so immersed in their own problems, in their own obsessions, that they are impervious to external influences. And the spirits that the leaders of these gangs in the lower zones, they know which spirits they that can join them and which spirits must be left alone because they cannot be accessed because of their own types of imbalances. Of course, he cannot, Andre Luiz cannot see how large it is. He knows that this is enormous. He knows that this is a very dense, and this is just, again, this is just the beginning of their journey. And Sister Cipriana and her other 5 colleagues said goodbye and went down to a more deeper region to provide assistance to more troubled spirits. That if we can see here, we can only imagine what type of spirits they are going to be dealing with. And she tells Andre Luiz and Calderaro that she'll be back to get them in around 6 hours. So can you imagine staying 6 hours in a place like that? You need to be prepared. It must be very, very scary if you're not prepared. Okay? Questions, comments? Yes, Luis.
What kind of mobility those wandering spirits in the lower umbral have to come close to our incarnate, to us incarnate beings, and obsess us? I mean, do all of them can do that? A few, and how does it happen?
Okay, so we are going to read a little bit, not exactly what you asked, but how they move about in that region. But that's not what you asked exactly. That's when you started. I thought that was the question. But what these spirits, they and we'll see here very shortly, they are, many of them, especially the leaders, are evolved intellectually, not morally, but intellectually. So they know their way around. They know how to move and how to come to close to the incarnates when they want to cause harm, when they want to disturb. And actually, that's the work that they do, is to try to attack and affect those the incarnate ones that they want to persecute. So let's divide them here. The ones that are isolated in their own mono ideas, their own thoughts, they are not connected. They may be connected to one incarnate by thought, and by some other connection, but they don't. Those that are in groups are the ones that are may attack us if we allow ourselves to be influenced by them. So we have to remember that the spiritual world and the physical world are not two separate spaces. So they are around us. This is around us. This what Andre Luiz is describing here is Earth, is the spiritual plane around us. So they are interacting with the incarnated ones, and they are acting on those that allow them to be exposed. So when we read other books of Andre Luiz, and we see the spirits acting, the influence of the spirits, like books in the domain of mediumship and other books, we'll see that they are around us and they are affecting us all the time. So it's a matter of what they want to do. And the leaders of these gangs, let's say, know exactly how to approach, how to behave, and how to direct. So they move about around us as needed, and can be very effective in attacking those that open themselves to their influences. Okay. Anything else here? Anyone read Dante Alighieri? No, Hell? It's really interesting if you start reading the Divine Comedy also. Okay.
One question: the movie Soul you spoke about, are you talking about the one which is by Disney, or?
Yes, that one. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that movie it's a very cute movie, and there is a lot of things that we talk about in our studies here. Of course, I really enjoy the movie, and I said what's missing is reincarnation. But besides reincarnation, there's a very good explanation of spirits preparing to reincarnate, and the death, and where we find ourselves. It's of course made for children, made for youth, but a lot of truths there. Very interesting. We see that truths are everywhere, as we always say, right? Our interpretations is what may vary. Okay. All right, Zoraida, let's continue.
Yes. Okay. Alderado and I found ourselves alone in the utter expanse populated by strange inhabitants. The conversations around us were countless and complex. It seemed at first sight that the discarnate folk were not aware of their situation. While large crowds of tortured souls trashed about in a vicious substance on the ground where we were walking, Assembly's demented spirits swarmed not far away, engaged in endless arguments about petty subjects. The landscape was obviously extraordinary due to the hellish characteristics surrounding us. Noting the heedlessness of many of those miserable brothers and sisters, I couldn't silence the questions assailing me. The groups of wretches were completely unaware of each other's suffering. Certain groups volitated a little above the ground like flocks of black crows that were even darker than the darkness that engulfed us, while large throngs of wrenched spirits remained stuck to the ground like unfortunate birds with broken wings. How to explain it all? I started my questions by addressing the instructor. Can these willful beings see us? Some can't, but they don't care. They are too concerned about themselves. They harbor contemptible sentiments in their hearts, and it will be a long time before they are free of them. Are all these souls forsaken, left to themselves? No, replied Caderaro patiently. There are several rescue outposts around here, and several schools with many dedicated, selfless aides. Sufferers and tortured personages are cared for according to their potential to benefit from it. He had an understanding look on his face as he considered. The lower zones will never lack nurses and teachers, because one of the greatest joys of heaven is that of emptying infernal places such as this. As I watch,
Okay. So what are they seeing? And you see in these descriptions how, going back to the beginning, how Andre Luiz is not really prepared to go deeper than that. He's already struggling to understand what's going on around him here. So he's hearing the conversations, and he says that many of those were not aware of their situation. Describes the place a little bit. Endless arguments about petty subjects. Remember, a lot of these spirits, they are back in the spiritual world, but they are not fully conscious of their situation. They are in a haze of understanding they are back in the spiritual world, or some thinking that they are still living and not understanding what's going on with them. Remember the movie The Others, right? Which is a little bit different because they stayed in the house, but they don't know that they are dead. So, these groups, as he describes here, they are unaware of each other's suffering. They are minding their own business. What happens around them, it's of no interest, and they don't care of what happens to other spirits around them. They live in their own groups and only care about those around them. Remember the example of that I always give of walking one block on Fifth Avenue, and you have 1,000 people crossing you, but you don't pay attention to any, or maybe you pay attention to one or two because you are minding your own business. They are there minding their own business. So the spirits around them, they don't really care what they are doing. And he talks here about some groups volitated a little above the ground, and we'll see this later, the discussion, okay? Why some of them do and why some of them don't. So if that's your curiosity, we'll deal with that in the next part. But he said that others are stuck to the ground like unfortunate birds. So this is according to their level of knowledge and understanding of the spiritual world, right? The more you understand where you are, the more you are able to move about better. Of course, according to your level of evolution, you can move around, but you cannot move up. You can always move on your surroundings. And he asks, Andre Luiz asks if they can see them. And Calderaro says that some of them can, but no, they don't care. So some can and some cannot. What is that? Well, you are, if you remember what we said in the spiritual world, in some books that we studied, the spirits can see the surroundings of what they want/need to see, or what they can see. If you remember when we studied the discarnation of Sigismundo, I know many of you were not studying with us, in the book Missionaries of the Light, when they first visit the parents that were preparing to receive Sigismundo, both come out of their physical body during their sleep, and the mother immediately sees her grandmother, but doesn't see Andre Luiz and the others, and the father immediately sees only Sigismundo, which is the one that he had the issue with. So they see where their minds focus. They don't see what they are not interested. So Calderaro and Andre Luiz are there for those that want to see them. But, you know, there are thousands of spirits there. So they don't pay attention to the other groups. They don't pay attention to Andre Luiz or Calderaro. Really, they don't care. They are too concerned about themselves. And then Andre Luiz makes, you know, the obvious and classical question. You know, poor souls, are they here left alone, forgetting what he already have seen in the previous books, right? That the assistance is always there. He has been in this rescue houses of assistance that are found in the middle of the lower zones, and they are always prepared to receive the spirits that are ready to be assisted. He says here, Calderaro, several rescue outposts are around here, and several schools with many dedicated selfless aides. Sufferers and tortured personages are cared for according to their potential to benefit from it. That's the key here. Those that are prepared to be helped and assisted are helped and assisted. Those that have no interest or no care about being assisted are left by themselves until they find the need to be assisted. And we always go back to Andre Luiz himself, who stayed 8 years in the lower zones, as we see in the book Nosso Lar. And the first thing that he complains when he's rescued is, where were you these 8 years? And then, you know, they said, we were always there, but you were not ready to be assisted. So assistance is always there. The lower zones will never lack nurses and teachers, because the main objective of spirits that are in the evolutionary path is to help and assist those that are below them. Once you reach the level of understanding and the level of awareness that our own evolution will only happen if we can be of help and assistance to those that are in less privileged places than we are, that's the only way we are going to be able to evolve. Then is when we start working, seriously working. So these places are always full of spirits that are trying to help and assist all those that are ready to be assisted. So let's say talking about our mediumship meetings, the spirits are brought to our mediumship meetings. The spirits that are here, they are the ones that grab those spirits and take them and take them to the meetings so they can be assisted. Those spirits that are ready to be assisted, where they show any inclination to or doubting themselves. They only need to doubt themselves, doubt their objectives, doubt what they are doing, slightly doubt what they are doing to receive the assistance. The problem is that here in this place, most of the spirits don't have any doubts. They are focused on doing harm because they are 100% convicted that that's what they are supposed to do. That's what they want to do. They are not doubting themselves. The moment they start doubting themselves, the moment they start questioning if that's the right path, they will be ready and open to receive the assistance. Maybe they won't accept the assistance, as we see many times in our mediumistic meetings, spirits that are not convinced. but it's the beginning of the process. They will eventually accept the assistance, but it's a long journey for those spirits. It's a very difficult situation they find themselves in, and it will take a long time for them to overcome it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Questions?
Johnny, you mentioned your mediumship meetings, and you mentioned wandering souls that are brought in by more advanced spirits to be attended to in your meetings. I ask, don't you also have wandering souls that come with some of the participants? And
oh, sorry. Yes. The type of work we do in our mediumistic meeting is of assistance, and one of the most important works that a spiritist group have to do in their mediumistic meetings is provide assistance to the spirits associated with members of the group, not the mediumistic group only, but all the members, all people that go to our meetings. So anyone that has a spirit associated that is in need of help and in need of assistance is kept in the spiritist center, and is brought to the spiritist center to be assisted. So yes, we deal with both, with spirits associated with members, and actually on our meetings specifically, we dedicate the first Monday, which is the day we do of every month, to work with spirits associated with the workers of our group. But of course, the phone rings from there to here, not from here to there. So we can open ourselves and we ask to assist those associated, but we will assist any spirit that is brought. The mentors know what type of work we should do. Yes, but yeah, we deal with all. Okay, anything else? This is, again, it's a very interesting chapter. It's not very easy to deal with this because it can cause us to be impressed or concerned or worried where we are going to find ourselves. But in general, these spirits that we are finding here are spirits that would never be in a meeting like this when they were incarnated, because their interests are not spiritual. Their interests is very material. Their interests are, in things of mundane things, and they work here when they are incarnated to their own benefits and to the benefits of those around them, not having any scruples of deceiving others if possible. So these are spirits that end up in these places, not spirits that don't cause any harm intentionally, or that are in some way looking for spiritual enlightenment. Spirits that incarnates that go to religious places or go in search of spiritual truths. These are not spirits that are going to find themselves in these places. The spirits are find themselves in these places are spirits that when incarnated were really 100% focused on their own selves and to take advantage of their own lives, causing harm to others in different forms. So just to put everyone at peace that it's unlikely that we are going to end up in this place. We may end up in the lower zones, but in places that where we can receive assistance directly in these outposts or in places surrounding it. Okay.
Okay, continue.
All right, continue.
As I watched thrones of beings moving through the air very near to us, I remembered that in our colony, the faculty of Volitation was not commonly used so as not to offend those who had not yet developed it. But what about here? Low order spirits were volitating, even though just a few yards off the ground. Caldelaro explained. Don't be so surprised. Basically, volitation depends on the mental power that the mind has stored up. In any case, though, it is important to remember that the highest flights of the soul are only possible when an elevated intellect is combined with sublime love. They are perverse spirits with a strong volitive capacity, even though it is limited to lower realms. They have an immense mental capacity and can manipulate certain forces of nature, but they lack qualities connected with the sublimation of the sentiments, and this keeps them from going higher. As far as the spirits in our colony are concerned, a large number of individuals are still unable to use such an advantage, but that is natural. In the common evolutionary process, it is easier to rescue and live with individuals who have a greater supply of love and a reduced amount of intelligence than it is to harbor highly intelligent individuals who have no love for their fellow beings. As for the latter, a constructive community life is almost impracticable. Concerning volitation, it is important to observe the personages, the examples found in nature. Remember that crows fly low, looking for scraps, whereas swallows fly high, seeking the springtime.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I mentioned before, that we were going to discuss volitation, right? Because
Yeah.
it's something that we are always curious to understand how spirits move about in the spiritual world. And we see in the book Nosso Lar that Andre Luiz takes the aerobus to move from one place to the other before he learns how to move around in more with the speed of thought. And when we go to the second book, The Messengers, that is the first time he comes to Earth, to our physical plane for assistance. It takes 2/3 of the book for them to go through the intermediate zones and to reach us here. And then on the other books, he starts describing as he lives the places he are in the spiritual world, and immediately he finds himself in our physical plane. So volitation, as Calderaro explains here, has more to do with our intellectual capacity than with our moral evolution. So the spirits here, some of them are aware of how move around works. They have the knowledge. They don't have the moral quality. So they have an immense mental capacity and can manipulate certain forces of nature. So they are more evolved on the intellectual side, but they lack these sentiments. And this keeps them from going higher, keeps them from moving to a more elevated spiritual zones. They can move, fly above the other spirits that are stick to the ground, but they cannot move much higher. So remembering that in the lower zones, you find highly intelligent individuals who have no love for their fellow beings. Again, look around us, incarnated ones. How many geniuses we find here incarnated that only care about themselves and their achievements. So they're highly intelligent individuals who have no empathy, no love for their fellow beings. So they are going to find themselves in difficult situations when they're back in the spiritual zone. On the other hand, you have spirits that are morally evolved but don't have the intellectual abilities. So those that are the ones that are received in Nosular, and because they lack the intellectual knowledge of how to move around levitating, they move around walking, or they take transportation, the spiritual world transportation, until they learn how to move around with their thoughts. It's a process. But again, like Elmo normally says, it's easier to accumulate intellectual knowledge than it is to accumulate moral evolvement, because moral evolution means eliminating things that belong to us and that we shouldn't have, which is our imperfections. Intellectual knowledge means accumulating things on top of things that we already have. You don't have to subtract anything. So to subtract is on the moral aspect, and that's always hard. That's always with what we always struggle, is to eliminate our imperfections. So it's important to understand this, because we normally mix the evolutions on both sides, and we think that spirits, how can lower level spirits can move around and levitate, and it addressed a little bit of what Luis asked before, how those spirits can be around us, or where they are, where are they? And you know, they can move around very fast and very efficient if they know how to do it. They can move horizontally, they cannot move vertically. And that's what's missing, is the ability to move higher, because they lack the moral evolution that they need to acquire. And how are they going to acquire the moral evolution? Well, if they don't open themselves to learn it, they're going to acquire through suffering, through pain, through difficult incarnations, by struggling with the new reincarnations, where they will have to learn empathy, they will have to learn care for others. So they'll find themselves responsible for suffering spirits that have no condition to deal with their lives themselves. They have to take care of them. This is one of the ways that they are going to learn how to care for others. To have to forget about themselves and care for others is what these spirits will need for their progress. Okay? Yes. Any questions here about volitation and his abilities? He gives an example here about comparing the crows that fly low, looking for scraps, where swallows fly high, seeking the springtime, which is, you know, it's an interesting comparison of, you know, of these spirits that are struggling to fly high and the spirits that can fly high. Okay. All right.
Okay, we'll continue. Yes. After this explanation, I recalled earthly conditions and asked, but what about the need for food? The instructor didn't hesitate. They lack nothing as far as the essential necessities of health and maintenance are concerned. It's just like any mental hospital in the physical realm. The assistant paused briefly and then proceeded. Speaking of mental hospitals, I must tell you now that my aim for having taken you to one was to prepare you for this excursion. In these groups of incomprehension and pain, there are endless ranks of insane individuals who intentionally avoided the realities of life. They fixated their minds in the lowest zones of the self, and forgetting the sacred patrimony of reason, they committed grievous wrongs, acquiring enormous depths. Within our own spirit community, you have seen suffering brothers and sisters receiving proper assistance. Some are still suffering strange hallucinatorial disturbances. Others are kept like paraspiritual mummies in deep lethargy, waiting to wake up. Still others populate vast infirmities, gradually recovering spiritually. Here, however, venerable tribes of criminals and moral delinquents congregate, attracted to each other according to the nature of the wrongs they hold in common. Many are intelligent and intellectually speaking, enlightened, but they don't have one speck of love to exalt their hearts. They roam from obstacle to obstacle, from nightmare to nightmare, still insensitive to spiritual help due to the hardness of their sentiments. The shock of disincarnation seems to have galvanized them in the mental state they were in at the moment of their transition between the two spheres. Thus, it's not easy to extricate them right away from the instability into which they thoughtlessly fell. They remain at a standstill, sometimes for years on end, stuck in the errors they had gotten accustomed to. By strengthening base impulses through the incense, mutual exchange of energies, they usually begin to experience not only their own instability, but also that of their companions in misery. In view of the patrimonium we were witnessing, the instructor continued. The ancient concept of Erebus, burning in the eternal flames of divine vengeance, is a dangerous illusion. Nevertheless, the purgatorial places of criminal desires and actions, awaiting souls tainted by their excesses, are logical realities in the spirit-inhabited regions. Here, misers, murderers, the greedy and addicts of all kinds assemble in a deplorable state of inner blindness. They form compact lines that gradually make their way toward the abysses. Each one possesses an ugly story filled with anguished details. Prisoners of themselves, they have shut their minds to life's revelations and have restricted their mental horizons. They move within themselves in exclusive actions of their base impulses, holding on to the past that they should be purging. When they begin to show signs of improvement, they are assisted by the industrious and selfless congregations of helpers who work here. In response to imperatives from above, higher authorities from our rim set up tribunals for instructional purposes. Their rulings manifest love and wisdom and always end up ordering either regenerative work by means of reincarnation on the earth or laborious tasks in the bosom of nature. Once those who violated the law to their own harm show enough comprehension and repentance. From this vast warehouse of guilt-tinted mental alienation originates the largest quotient of the dolorous reincarnations that populate the corporeal circles. From here, as well as from other similar zones, millions of brothers and sisters enduring arduous trials proceed to the denser physical realm so that they get rid of their depths and reharmonize their disturbed inner self. Few, however, manage to profit from the earthly opportunity in the sense of restoring their own energies. It is always easy to flee the upright path, but very difficult to return to it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
That was the tough part.
Yeah.
So the first Andre Luiz start asking by the need for food, and our first question to ourselves is what do they need food in the spiritual world? We didn't know they need food there. Well, it's when we are back in the spiritual world without any understanding and knowledge of what happens in the spiritual world, we continue to have our basic necessities because they are in our own minds. So we need food and we need water, and we need to continue with the essentials that we just had in our previous incarnations. And Calderaro doesn't spend much time with it. He just said they lack nothing as far as the essential necessities of health. And then he dives directly into the mental hospital that they just left in the previous chapter. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning, because he mentions that many of those that they found in the mental hospital that they just visited, are those that are going to find themselves in these lowest zones, as they say, the lowest zones of the self. And they are many of those that they see around there, those that try to escape the reality of their own lives and ended up committing wrongs and accumulated debts. And those are the ones that are going to find themselves in these places without any understanding where they are. It's just a group of them, not, he's not saying that all of those individuals that are there, the spirits that are there, come from the mental hospitals, but what he's saying is that those that are in the mental hospitals more likely end up in these places. And again, not all of them, most of them, because each case is a different case and there are different things happening to each one of us. And then he mentions of those that Andre Luiz has seen in previous books that are receiving assistance in either Nosso Lar, on the spiritual colonies, or in the outposts, that some of them are still in deep sleep. But why they are there and they are not here in this place? Because they already reached a stage of doubting themselves, of questioning themselves, of feeling something, so they are ready to be helped and assisted. And as he said here, there are tribes of criminals and moral delinquents attracted to each other according to the nature of the wrongs. And even more, that some are intelligent and intellectually speaking enlightened, but they don't have one speck of love to exalt their hearts. Those that only think about themselves. So they keep moving from obstacles to obstacles, nightmare to nightmare. Why is that? Because they are still looking for what they had in the physical life and they're lost. And they don't understand why they lost, and they chase what they have lost in the physical world, trying to associate themselves with those that are still incarnated and experiencing what they miss, or obsessing and harming, trying to harm those that they think are responsible for the situation they find themselves in. Remember when I said in the beginning, we are always looking for someone else to blame for our own mistakes. So here, this intelligent and intellectually speaking enlightened, they think that they are in those places because it's someone else's fault, right? And especially nowadays in this polarized communities we live, that we see people blaming others for everything that happens to them. These are the spirits that we find there in these places, those that go from, as they say here, from nightmare to nightmare, insensitive to spiritual help due to the hardness of their sentiments. And again, we don't have we don't have the awareness of a spiritual help that is available to us because we don't open ourselves to the assistance. The assistance is always there. The spiritual world, we never lack the help and assistance that we need, but we need to be open to receive the assistance. And Calderaro says here, the shock of discarnation seems to have galvanized them in the mental state where they were. So they discarnate, and what they had, the thoughts that they had when they discarnate, they cannot get rid of them. That's all they think about. The moment of the transition, they carry with themselves all the thoughts they had while still living. So they remain, as Calderaro here says, at a standstill, sometimes for years, stuck in the errors that they have gotten accustomed to. But they, connecting to others that feel exactly like they are, And then Calderaro talks here about the ancient concept of Erebus. Erebus, it's a place or a deity in ancient Greece that represents the personification of darkness. It's considered that Erebus came from chaos, which is already another deity of the ancient Greek. So you don't find it very much in the Greek mythological literature, but it is considered the region of the Greek underworld where the dead pass immediately after dying. And sometimes is used also interchangeable with Tartarus, but it is maybe what we can call purgatory. Spirits that stay in burning and eternal flames of divine vengeance here. So again, we see that the concepts of the spiritual world are there from the very beginning. From the moment we became rational and started analyzing ourselves and where do we come from and where we're going and what's happening around us, we started to disseminate these concepts of life in the spiritual world as we wrongly remember it, or not wrongly, but in broken pieces remember. So this concept of Erebus or purgatory that we bring to our incarnations, small recollections of it, is what were described from that time and still today. And it's not really far from reality. It's just different places. So he describing here what they find, where they find themselves. Calderaro talks about misers, murderers, the greedy and addicts of all kinds, assemble in deplorable state of inner blindness. Again, here are the key words: inner blindness. They don't see anything outside themselves, so they refuse any form of assistance. They all have their ugly stories, as he says here, and they are prisoners of themselves because they close their minds to life's revelations and restricted their mental horizons. Again, they live in their own dark reality. They live, if you remember in the beginning of the book, the three divisions of our mind: the lower, the middle, and the higher. And the lower is our base instincts, is where they find themselves. As he says here, they shut their minds to life's revelations, and they move within themselves in exclusive actions of their base impulses. So in the lower levels of the mind, holding on to the past. Remember, the base is where we keep our past and our experiences. The middle one is where we experience our present life and what we are learning, what we are accumulating. And the higher brain or the higher mind is where we have our aspirations, our spiritual side, and our desires to move forward. So ideally, we would live in the present, using the past to help us move forward and trying to achieve an evolution that is on the higher part, but making use of all three of them. If you go back to the chapter that in the very beginning of the book that Calderaro discusses these three aspects of the mind, you see the description here of those that get stuck either in the past or think only about the present, and even those that think only about the future and forget about the present, which is also damaging. You know, you have to live in the three aspects of the mind at the same time. So finally, he says, but not all is lost. When they begin to show signs of improvement, they are assisted by the congregations of helpers that live and work there. So then he mentions about these tribunals, which is interesting because we normally say we are not judged by external tribunals, we are judged by ourselves. But when we talk about reincarnation plans, we talk about if we are in no condition to decide what's best for us in our new incarnation, either because we are not aware of the reincarnation process or because we are in no condition because of our mental imbalances to plan our reincarnation, we have a group of spirits, our protecting spirits, that plan the reincarnation for us. So these are the so-called tribunals. They are just the ones because they are tribunals, as say, for instructional purposes. The rulings manifest love and wisdom and always end up ordering either regenerative works by means of reincarnation on the earth or laborious tasks in the bosom of nature, meaning the spirits will continue work in the spiritual world in terms of very basic works in the spirits that, when we talk about spirits that are guards in the spiritist centers, that stay outside the spirit centers, protecting them from intruders. These are this type of spirits that they are very struggling to evolve, but they already understand the need to work to improve themselves. So they are given the task of these basic works of assistance, of helping. These are maybe the spirits that are used in mediumship of physical effects that are used to help those phenomena. So they are already starting the process of redemption of themselves that can go either through reincarnation or through laborious work in the bosom of nature, as they say here. And then he says that many of the dolorous reincarnations that we see in the corporeal circles come from these regions. The trials that they have to come. But unfortunately, very few profit from this earthly opportunity for restoring their own energies. But it's a process. It's a slow and continuous process that they have to go through. And he says that it's very easy to flee the upright path, but very difficult to return to it. Okay? I know this is hard, but you know, we are in the very lower zones, very difficult places where we find hardened spirits, not our average spirits. These are hardened spirits. Okay. Questions, comments here? Okay.
Okay.
We'll continue here.
Okay. Just then, a huge, noisy beehive of sufferers approached us. It was a frightening group of brothers and sisters who were positively crazy. They spoke haphazardly, discussing murderers. They used cruel words to tell about indescribable scenes of pain and perversity. Not one of them knew we were there. Very serene and knowing my ingrained curiosity, Calderaro explained. These poor wretches are yoked to one another by nearly perfect affinities and are constrained only by vibratorial laws that govern them. But if you like to get to know the history of some of them, probe the mind of the one that interests you the most. Taking advantage of a moment in which their quarrel had abated, I approached an unfortunate brother who impressed me with his sickly face. I turned into the mental wave he was emitting, but the picture I saw didn't allow an extended inquiry. I could see the reason behind his insanity. He had murdered his wife in dreadful circumstances. He showed no remorse. However, in fact, he wanted to see his victim again so that he could torture her as many times as possible. What tragedy lay buried in those disturbing recollections? Astonished, I looked at the assistants in mute questioning. At that point, however, an onerous group of monstrous beings had neared me, levitating and making a deafening noise. I immediately forget about the wife murderer, preceding my perplexity. Calderaro explained. This gang of miserable spirits, which moves about the best it can, is composed of former merchants whose sole desire was to amass money to satisfy their own greed, but without benefiting anyone else. The gold that belonged to them temporarily was never used to soar thankfulness in one single companion of their human journey. Eager for an easy fortune, they invented 1,000 ways to monopolize both large and small profits, without being the least bit concerned about their neighbors' welfare. They were men of agile minds. They knew how to mentally soar long distances, ensuring the total success of the material businesses they operated with exclusively selfish goals. Their neighbors' suffering didn't faze them. They ignored others' problems, and they didn't care about the value of time in relation to the perfecting of their souls. They only wanted to accumulate financial advantages, nothing more. Divorced from charity, comprehension, and divine light, they created for themselves the cold and unyielding myth of gold, combined with a strong mind and a vicious heart, avarice heart, enslaved now to the fixed idea of continuing to amass wealth. They fly heavily here and there, demented and confused, seeking the monopolies and profits they can no longer find. I felt sorry for them. I wanted to stop some of them and talk to them fraternally so as to enlighten them. But the instructor held me back and asked, "What are you doing? It would be useless. It's impossible to use only words to suddenly readjust so many cruelly imbalanced minds." And urging me ahead, he concluded, "Let's go. It would take you many weeks to get to know the landscape of pain that is spread out before us, and we have only a few hours."
Okay. So we see here a couple of examples of the spirits we find in this place, of type of spirits we find in this place, right? That they are now. Calderaro asked Andre Luiz to approach one of them to see what's going on in their mind. And you see Andre Luiz at this level of evolution that he is, which is not very advanced, but he already learned to connect mentally to spirits of an inferior level to understand what's going on in their mind. So Calderaro first, he says they are connected to each other in nearly perfect affinities, meaning they have their own vibrational level. They think about the same things, and they are trying to achieve the same levels. And then when he sees a spirit, Andre Luiz connects to a spirit that murdered his wife in dreadful circumstances, but the key here showed no remorse, however. In fact, he wanted to see his victim again so that he could torture her. So it's a spirit that committed a murder, but has no regret about committing the murder. So he continues to chase her and to persecute her. Is he going to be able to find her? Only if she allows herself to desires of vengeance, desires of hatred. Then they are going to connect to each other, and they may begin an obsession, a process of obsession, that mutual obsession that can last for a very long time. But if she was murdered and accept her destiny and moved on, it doesn't mean she forgave him. That's not what we're saying here. But not being connected to him through hatred, she's able to move on, and he won't be able to find her. But he still needs to deal with the consequence of his action, and he will be chasing her for as long as he keeps himself in this state of mind. And then it talks here about a group that I think, we can see how many we see in the physical world of this, that merchants that want to amass money to satisfy their own greed without benefiting anyone else. Anyone else here, meaning the community. Of course, many of them take care of their own families, think about their own families, but do not think about others at all, think about only themselves. So they find themselves connected with these thoughts of achieving fortune. And when they find themselves back in the spiritual world, they continue to have only this thing in their minds. They monopolize large and small profits. So they are going to be associating themselves with individuals that have this tendency, and they are looking to do the same, incarnate. And the discarnates, they work together. They work together with the incarnates. So they are, as he says, divorced from charity, comprehension, and the divine light. They created themselves the myth of gold and the myth of gold. They have an avaricious heart. They are enslaved to the idea of continuing to amass wealth. So they are lost and confused, demented, seeking the monopolies and profits they can no longer find, seeking for the same things they trying to find when they were incarnated. But in the spiritual world, they cannot find this. There is no currency in the spiritual world. So Andre Luiz, of course, a man of action, as Julio used to say, right? Wanted to stop some of them and talk to them, enlighten them. But Calderaro, that knows better, tells Andre Luiz, what are you doing? Useless. It's impossible to use all words. And again, we know that from conversations we have in our mediumship meetings, words only affect nothing, because you end up in a battle of words with these spirits. Only when you bring to the heart, when you can talk with the heart, when you can reach them through their pain, is when you may be able to change them. So Calderaro says it will take us many weeks to understand the landscape of pain that is spread before us, and we have only a few hours. So the next chapter we will continue talking of this experience in these lower zones, but Andre Luiz is going to find an old affection, and those that read the book know that Andre Luiz finds his grandfather there in the middle of these spirits, and it's very interesting when he meets his grandfather. Is very emotional because his grandfather really cared for him and he cared for his grandfather, but it's interesting that he finds his grandfather in this place. So we have a question here. If there is there a book that describes the lower zone and its inhabitants were the group that went lower, Cyprian and the group? In the book Liberation, you are going to find them going to the lower zone. It's not really this excursion that Cipriana goes, because I don't remember having it, but either in the book Liberation you are going to find already a description of the deeper lower zones when they work to rescue Gregorio, which was a former pope. So you can reread it again, the book, if you haven't read it.
Well,
okay. Yes.
Well,
Marisa. Yes.
When you are in a spiritual world, and who's decided that you are prepared to reincarnate?
We all have our guardian angel, our familiar spirits, the ones that take care of us, that we may or may not listen to them. But the reincarnation process is a natural law. We all have to reincarnate. Now, when is decided by the spiritual benefactors in terms of our own needs. So this type of spirits, they are suffering there, they are struggling there. So the only way out of there for some of them is a new reincarnation. So after it reaches a point where they continue insisting on their own closed mind to external assistance, they are sent to a new reincarnation as a way to give them an opportunity to move away from this path they are. So the spiritual benefactors, they know where it is a good opportunity for us for a new incarnation, because there is a possibility of us improving. Possibility, no guarantees, and many times we come here and we fail miserably. But they are not going to send a spirit on a reincarnation if they don't see any possibility of any changes. So if they are still struggling and there is no possibility of change, they are kept in the spiritual world until there is a possibility, because time cures everything. So eventually all the spirits, they will start questioning themselves. They will start doubting if what they are doing is what is the best. And when they start doubting themselves, very slightly doubt, then the assistance comes, and then this assistance means a new reincarnation or continue working in the spiritual zones, in the spiritual world, in basic levels of work. So, we have always have assistance around us. Now, this assistance, what type of assistance we're going to have, depends on our needs, and they know our needs better than us.
Okay, thank you, João.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we made it just in time.
Yes. Perfect timing, John.
Yes. Okay. It's a hard, difficult chapter, but again, it's very interesting, very informative. There is a lot of good information there for us to understand better about life in the lower zones, and what type of spirits we find there in the lower zones, and what type of help and assistance they receive or they are available to receive. Okay. Next month we continue this study, because we're going to see another chapter that it's more specific to Andre Luiz personal experience in the physical world and in the spiritual world. Okay. So
João, you are getting each day better and better to speak, to explain, to enlighten us. You are getting gonna be soon a global speaker.
Thanks, Marisa.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We are all learning and we are all evolving, right?
Yeah.
So before we close here, we're back to our regular schedule. So Thursday we'll go back to the Spirit's book and the Medium's book. Tomorrow we have our fraternal assistance meeting at 7:30, and Tuesday is the study of the book Alert at noon. Okay. But today, for those that, unfortunately only for the Brazilians, but I have to announce anyway, today the International Spiritist Council is launching the second edition of the Spiritist Review. And there is a live at 2 p.m. with all those that wrote the articles. You will find the information of the live on our email that we send. The live is in Portuguese, but the magazine, the Spiritist Review, is published in several languages. So we have the one published in English that have all but one of the original articles in Portuguese. So we will have a very large magazine that you can access online and you can read very good articles. I helped translated some of them, and they are very good. One especially that talks about our friend Raul Teixeira and his work and his experience. that is very beautiful. And I highly recommend that you read the magazine. It's very nice. So it's launched today. If you want to see the live, it's in Portuguese. It's at 2 p.m. New York time. And you can access through the YouTube of the International Spiritist Federation, the Say YouTube. Okay. So I'm going to ask Zoraida to do our final prayer now.
Yes. To our Father, our teacher, our mentor, Jesus Christ, to our spiritual benefactors, to all that have contributed to this beautiful meeting today. We are thankful and grateful. We ask that we continue to keep ourselves focused, the goodness of all that we've learned through Spiritism throughout this year, helping us to evolve within our families, within friends and the outside world. We especially keep ourselves in prayers for the spiritual world, for all that have gone through their transition, for the families that stay behind. We keep our prayers to all that are in need, dear Father. We also ask for the protection and guidance to the United States Spiritist Federation, the United States Spiritist Council, for all our teachers and mentors, for Jusara and Jean, Elmo, all our mediums, all our brothers and sisters that meet as we did today in our study groups to protect and guide us throughout this coming year. And we pray for those in hospitals and hospices, all that are going through so much difficulties. Keep ourselves focused with prayers, dear Lord. May this year bring us the goodness of growing to understand who we are, to work with love and charity in our hearts now and always. We thank you, dear Lord, and with that in mind, we ask permission to close this meeting today. So be it.